In Syria, where Jean-Noel just made a very important visit, along with our friend, the German Foreign Minister, Annalena Baerbock, we see as well genuine hope for the future after 5 decades of an Assad regime that brutalized the Syrian people. Now they have an opportunity for a future that's not under the thumb of a dictator.
Zionist war criminal Antony Blinken was in France today, enjoying his last paid holiday as the US Secretary of State at the expense of American taxpayers' money. As part of the ritual, he addressed the media to make one more failed attempt to project himself as a diplomat. But much to his discomfort, once again, he reinforced his credentials as a genocide enabler, terror sympathizer, and enemy of humanity. This is precisely what this warmonger has done all through the Gaza conflict. Not that Joe Biden would have acted any different, since he too is a known Zionist. War criminal Blinken took advantage of the brain-dead US president's incapacitated mental conditions and supported Israel to carry out all kinds of horrors in Gaza. He kept arming Israel even as the rogue regime of bloodthirsty terrorist Benjamin Netanyahu brutally massacred more than 200,000 innocent men, women, children and babies, and destroyed hospitals, educational institutions, libraries and all kinds of public buildings across Gaza using American and British bombs. He chose to discredit, yes, he went as far as to discredit top UN and international agencies such as the International Court of Justice, International Criminal Court, Human Rights Watch, Amnesty International, UNRWA, World Food Programme and Oxfam, among others. I can just go on and on. When they pronounced damning verdicts against terrorist Netanyahu and his regime.
I understand your position regarding jurisdiction and views on the recent announcement by the International Criminal Court's prosecutor to recommend warrants for the arrest of the Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu and Israeli Defense Minister Gallant, as well as Hamas leaders. And you've also been a longstanding champion of both the UN system and other international organizations. The United States has also supported ICC investigations of Russian crimes in Ukraine and of crimes committed in Sudan and the Central African Republic. So I wanted to ask you, do you believe that the independence of the International Criminal Court should be respected?
I have to tell you, Congressman, that the decision that the prosecutor made is both incredibly wrong-headed and, in my judgment, undermines the credibility of the court. You're right that we've sought to find ways to work with the court to support its efforts, including in Ukraine, Sudan, other places. But to have gone forward with these warrant requests, to do it in the way that it was done, first of all, the court itself, and I had a long conversation with the
court. But do you believe the court should maintain its independence?
Well, I think it should maintain its independence, but I also think it should act pursuant to its own mandate and charter. And what's clear from the creation of the court is it's supposed to be a court of last resort to act where other countries cannot or will not.
No, and I think y'all put out a strong statement. And I want to ask
Israel
you, but at the same time,
investigations of itself, and it's demonstrated time and time again that it will investigate alleged violations of the law.
At the same time, but Secretary, let me ask you, at the same time, you would agree that there shouldn't be any intimidation or coercion of the ICC?
It's not a question of intimidating or coercing. It's a question of seeing a wrong-headed decision, but also seeing what was genuinely
this court is going to have to exist well beyond even what's going on now, right? I mean, there will be other issues that it takes up with other nations in the future.
It will have to determine what it does and where it goes, but in this instance, I can tell you that not only was it wrong-headed, but there was a shameful equivalent.
Blinken's pronouncement last week in Korea conclusively proved that this guy had never wanted hostages to be released, dead or alive, simply so that he could justify Netanyahu's war crimes. No wonder even those who willfully pushed his genocidal propaganda, like New York Times, are now calling out his legacy as a Secretary of State who presided over a genocide.
Do you, Secretary Blinken, worry that perhaps you have been presiding over what the world will see as a genocide?
No, it's not, first of all. Second, as to how the world sees it, I can't fully answer to that. But everyone has to look at the facts and draw their own conclusions from those facts. And my conclusions are clear.
So today, this Zionist maniac was in Paris, where he addressed a press conference. Just watch his introductory speech to understand his rotten and filthy state of mind. By his own admission, he discussed Lebanon, Syria and Ukraine with his French counterpart, but not Gaza, where Israelis are continuing to commit genocide and ethnic cleansing of Palestinians using weapons supplied by Blinken and his terrorist colleagues in the US. I wish I could use even worse terminologies for these disgusting creatures who have brought shame to their nations, families, children and faith by financing a genocide. He said Syrians are now going to have a better future since Bashar al-Assad is gone. Yes, better future under an ISIS leader for whose arrest this war criminals country had announced a $10 million bounty. And this bounty was valid until as recent as last month. So just because the rogue regime of the US has now declared once bad terrorists as good terrorists, Syrians would now definitely have a better future.
In Lebanon, together, France and the United States produced a ceasefire in Lebanon that is holding, that's moving forward, and that is creating the possibility for a much different and much better future for the country, as well as for its relationship with Israel. Together, we put together an oversight mechanism to address concerns about ceasefire violations, and it is working. Challenges remain, but so far, the mechanism is functioning well, and we've seen as recently as yesterday now the withdrawal of about more than a third of Israeli forces in Lebanon. I think the ceasefire can be a bridge to a durable peace that allows people on both sides of the border, Israel and Lebanon, to return to their homes, to return to their lives, and to move forward in greater peace and security. In Syria, where Jean-Noel just made a very important visit, along with our friend, the German Foreign Minister, Annalena Baerbock, we see as well genuine hope for the future after 5 decades of an Assad regime that brutalized the Syrian people. Now they have an opportunity for a future that's not under the thumb of a dictator, not under the thumb of a foreign power, not under the thumb of a terrorist group, a future in which a sovereign Syria respects the rights of all of its people, and the country is not used as a base for terrorism or other bad things that we've seen affect people well beyond its borders. So there as well, France and the United States are fully united in what we want to see, what we expect, and the work we're doing to help achieve that. On Ukraine, as Jean-Noel said, France has been, from day one of the staunchest supporters of a free Ukraine, one that can resist and overcome the ongoing aggression that Russia is posing. Global support for Ukraine that France and the United States have helped bring about together is one of the strongest examples I've ever seen of burden sharing. And we see that in particular in France's leadership, from training more than 15,000 Ukrainian soldiers to signing a bilateral security agreement with Ukraine earlier this year, to French firms boosting production to strengthen our transatlantic defense industrial base. I think in the months to come, France's leadership will be essential for ensuring that Ukraine has what it needs to be in the strongest possible position.
This crook once again said, I think 1 millionth time in the last 15 months, that he was close to striking a ceasefire deal in Gaza. This was in response to a question from a reporter. Members of the brain-dead Biden regime and their cronies around the world seriously think that people are as morally bankrupt and fools as the core Zionist support base.
In the Middle East, we're very close to a ceasefire and hostage agreement. We've talked about this too in recent days. I hope that we can get it over the line in the time that we have left. But if we don't, then the plan that President Biden put forward for a ceasefire hostage deal will be handed over to the incoming administration. And I believe that when we get that deal, and we'll get it, it'll be on the basis of the plan that President Biden put before the world back in May. We've done an incredible amount of work of what follows a hostage ceasefire agreement in terms of the necessary arrangements for Gaza's security, its administration, its reconstruction, a day-after plan. We talked about this with the foreign minister as well. There, too, we're ready to hand that over to the administration so it can work on it and run with it when the opportunity is there. And more broadly, the work, the investment we've made in transformative arrangements for the Middle East, starting with the normalization of relations between Saudi Arabia and Israel, all of that is ready to go if the opportunity presents itself with a ceasefire in Gaza, as well as understandings on a pathway forward for the Palestinians. So there's tremendous opportunity there.
This clown will be out of the office by the end of next week. Hope he suffers severe consequences for his support to the mass murders of Palestinians and their annihilation in Gaza. That's it from me. Thank you very much for your support of this platform and our journalism on buymeacoffee.com and Patreon. If you do think that our journalism is worth supporting, then you too should consider becoming part of it. In the meantime, if you haven't subscribed to my channel, please do so, because that's one of the many ways you can support independent journalism. God bless you all.